Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of voting. My name is Evelyn.
And I'm Eric.
This is my guest, and I also have another guest. She's going to be our questionnaire in the back
Moderator.
moderator, um, Rachel. So today we're going to be talking about the importance of voting. We're going to start off with why did you vote?
I think this election was a very crucial election with the direction that our country is headed. So I thought that this was a pivotal point moving forward with our country and everybody doing their part to make a difference.
Okay, so I know a lot of students and a lot of friends of mine don't vote. Why do you think that is?
I think people have the misconception or the notion that their vote doesn't matter. I've heard it. I've heard it throughout this entire time where I was campaigning with my flags, where I was out there asking people about whether they were going to vote or not. And too many times, too many people said, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't matter anyways. It's all about the electoral college. They're going to vote for whoever they want anyways, which is a huge misconception, as we can tell from the election. Not only did President Trump win the electoral college, but he won the popular vote, which is your vote and my vote, which it does prove to make a difference every single year or every time there's an election. Your vote matters.
So do you think that too many people think that, oh, my vote doesn't matter, which was why like millions of people didn't end up voting?
I don't know the percentage of people that didn't vote, but I think a lot of people didn't like either candidate, and that could have been a huge contributing factor as to why they didn't vote anyways, because either they didn't like Trump or they didn't like Harris. So instead of saying, well, I'm not going to vote for either one, I'm just not going to vote at all. So in doing that, you didn't vote.
Well, they say that a non-vote is like a vote.
Correct. So whoever your party, whatever party it is that you're trying to nominate or get elected, if you choose or somebody that you know chooses not to vote, it's like if their vote is going for the other person because they're not voting for the candidate that you would like for them to vote for. So it is important for you to vote, because every vote that doesn't get inputted into the system as data to be tracked and to make a difference, it ends up being, or if you just choose to just say, I'm going to vote for an independent that was on the ticket. There was a couple of independents on there. It's like if you're throwing your vote away anyways, because there's the two main candidates that are going to end up making the difference, or winning the election.
So I know a lot of um I know that some people don't know what they're voting for. I know a lot of people kind of just vote because it's a trend. Do you think that it's important to do research before voting if you're like a first time voter, or say that you're new to the country and you just gained your like citizenship or something like that? Do you think that it's important to do your research before voting, or like I know some people kind of just voted because everybody was voting for one specific person?
I think it's extremely important for you to do the research for yourself, as far as the candidate that you're choosing to back. As far as me and the way that I vote, there's never going to be a specific candidate that you're going to align with their views specifically entirely. There's no perfect candidate. Kamala Harris had a couple of great points that I agreed with, and Trump had a lot of great points that I definitely agreed with. But ultimately, you have to do the research as to what are the policies that they're trying to put into place. What is the direction that they're trying to steer the country in moving forward, and your moral compass, your ethics and your values are what should ultimately guide you into voting for a specific party. You're not electing a specific candidate. because that candidate doesn't make the decisions by themselves. They have a cabinet that is sitting in office with them. Ultimately, they do make the decisions on their own, but they have a cabinet that is on the committee with them, on sitting there with them, helping them and guiding them to make the decisions that they feel is best for the country as a whole. So if you don't do any research and you're just voting, I heard a lot of people say, well, I'm voting for Harris because she's black and she's a woman. What does that mean? You have to know what are the views, what are the things that they stand for. Do they have a spine? Are they going to be able to stand under pressure, or do they buckle? How do you do what? You can't just say, well, I used to be the attorney general for California 20 years ago. It's got to be something that has made a difference now. And I just feel that if you don't do the research and you're just going based off of what's trending right now, or I'm voting for this person because they told me to, and you don't do any research on your own, it's an inservice or an injustice to yourself and to this country, because again, to me, that's just another thrown vote if you're not intentional about who you're voting for and why you're voting for that person.
Evelyn, where do you think a lot of students your age get research material from?
Nowadays everybody gets their research from online. I know social media has like a big part in it. Me myself, I'm always on Instagram, I'm always on TikTok, and this past election there was like for like 2 months maybe like straight, like I had so many political videos on my feed, and like it was just some information was good, some information was bad, but I think social media is probably the main place where we could get information for voting.
And how do you like determine whether a source is credible? Like you could find out real actual facts about a candidate, and how would you tell if it was like not something you'd probably listen to?
Well, I would go based on what's been said before. I know Trump has been in office before, and I know Kamala Harris was previously in office. I would go off based on what they've already done for us and like what's been being said the most. I feel like if something like were to be going around, like, and it's been talked a lot,
Okay, so Eric, the same question goes to you. Where do you think you could gain credible information about different candidates during a voting season?
You're definitely going to have to do research online. I would probably say to stay away from too much social media sources, because oftentimes the stuff that people put on social media is completely flawed. It's not credible, and too many people have showed me like, hey, did you see that Trump is trying to do this, or Kamala Harris did this, and it's like they didn't even stand for that. So you do have to do research. Go to credible sites. You can go to news stations. They usually put information, but even at that, even news stations today, I don't feel that news stations is what it used to be, say 20 years ago, where news stations were pretty neutral. Today you can see it, and it's very obvious where these news stations lie, who they like, who they don't like, who they endorse, and who they think is not right for the country. So I think that it's extremely important to find information. But when somebody tells you something, you're getting information from an individual. That's you're engaging with people on the topics. That should also bring up questions where you can say, hey, I'm going to go and look this up, what you said. Everybody associated Donald Trump with Project 2025. He's not associated with that. But if you didn't know that and all you hear is everybody saying that he's associated with it, then you're going to go based off of what people are telling you. That's why it is extremely important for you to look up the information. If you just go with what social media is putting, if you just put from what your friends are saying, or if you're just looking at one news station, you're going to get it very biased, and you're not going to be able to make a true vote based off of neutral neutral research or neutral information, based on that candidate and what they truly represent.
So going back to on what you said that news stations like are biased sometimes, or like they were very biased to selection. Do you think that's like inappropriate? Like when they go out and they're like not so much saying like specifically, but like what they stand for, like how it's directed. Do you think that's inappropriate to take like on the news? And I know like so many people watch the news, and it's like they see them acting like that, and they think like oh that's how they're acting, like that's who you're like, this is who you're voting for, and that's your reflection of who you're voting for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that the news stations and the news in general has really gotten away from what their job is. And your job is to report news. Your job is to report what is happening, what is trending in the world right now. You're reporting it as it comes in, or you're reporting videos and things that have been recorded. It's your job to report it as it is. Um, from several of the debates that I saw, the one with President Trump and Biden, and even the one with President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, the news station, I want to say that ABC did one. I'm not sure who did the other one, but they were completely um, um, giving very, you can tell that they were fact checking Donald Trump a lot. And it seemed like the questions that they were asking Kamala Harris were very softball questions, very easy to answer questions. Um, as opposed to when Kamala Harris went on an interview with Brett Bauer, she didn't know how to answer because the questions that he was actually asking her were hard. So you get these individuals that are being asked these ridiculously hard questions, and another candidate is not, and then it's vice versa when they go on another network and they're getting asked hard questions and the other one's not. Instead of it just being fair all the way around, where everybody's going to have, or both candidates are going to have the same amount of either hard questions or not hard questions. They should both be able to answer those questions fairly.
Okay, so let me switch gears a little bit and ask each of you. So, Evelyn, in your generation, would you consider yourself like a Gen Z?
Yes.
Like a Gen Z. Okay.
Definitely Gen Z. So I think because of our like different generations, I think this is why he was a good person to bring on my podcast, because I think he's just he has a different way of seeing it than we do.
I wanted to ask you though, like, what were some important points in this election for the Gen Z generation? Like, what are some important things to you? The reason you voted, however you voted, what was important to you?
Well, I think the way that I voted was because of how I live. And I think that has to do with, the people you surround yourself with. Um, I know that Gen Zers, we are influenced by our friends, and how they they vote. I know like sometimes you might vote because you want people to like you. That might change your vote. Um, but I voted mainly on like how I live and how I chose to compare my beliefs to the candidate I voted for his beliefs. So I think in today's society a lot of people see what's trending, and they voted for that. I know a lot of people that voted for LGBTQ just because that's what Kamala supported. I know a lot of people voted for abortion rights because they're irresponsible and don't want to have kids. Um, but they only voted for Kamala because that's all that they saw her standing for. But when really it's not even up to her, it's up to the states that have to. It's not even up to the president. They can't take that away. So I think you really have to like, when it comes to voting, you really have to compare yourself to what you believe in and what you stand for and how you see it. And you have to compare the candidates to what you believe in. And I think it's mainly on that. I don't think that you should vote in any other type of way, I think that would be the best way for you to like vote in for a candidate. And I think that if that's how you see it, then I mean that's how you vote. I feel like what you believe in should be your main way of voting.
Okay, and Eric.
And kind of growing up in the 90s, we didn't really have media. We didn't have the technology, social media. Everything was a lot of interacting with each other. So I think that the world that we're living in today is very, very different than the world that we were raised in. Even I would even say even the generation that my parents grew up in the 60s, it wasn't very different from us in the 80s because the technology wasn't around at that time until the mid 90s, early 2000s, where you really started seeing the Apple products come into the picture, and the internet, moving away from AOL and all this dial up to wireless and really advanced technology. But I feel that from when from the last election in 2020 till now, you you have to look at what a person has done while they've been in office. And I just feel that the sitting president right now, President Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris, they've been in office for almost 4 years now, and you don't need somebody to tell you we need change. You can see the change that is needed. You go to the stores and you look at the price of eggs. I just went to the store, as a matter of fact, 2 days ago. I don't really pay attention to it too much because we go to the store and we're going to buy essential foods, whether the prices have gone up or not, you're going to buy it anyways. So I never really paid attention to it. But this past week when I went to the store, I went in specifically for eggs, milk, and meat, and I was like, oh my gosh, milk is almost 4.50 a gallon, and a price of 18 eggs, right, a dozen and a half, was almost 6.50 for a dozen and a half of eggs. When I clearly remember the dozen of eggs being $3, and I remember milk being like 2.30, right? Everything has gone up, 100 to 200%, if not more. And when your platform stands on one specific policy that you're trying to enact, it's not a coincidence that Kamala Harris lost. It's not a coincidence. Her whole platform was on choice. Unfortunately, the entire United States saw, and it was evident, that people's priority wasn't choice. Not that people didn't care about choice. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that ended up voting for President Trump and may have voted for Kamala Harris, they only voted for him because what he's going to do, or what he's talking about doing, is in the direction that they want our country to go. But when you focus your whole party and your whole platform around one thing that isn't going to affect people for the most part, unfortunately, their whole thing was talking about what happens when you have women that are raped and incest. I'm sorry, but that's not a majority. You don't often see people getting raped, and you don't see too many people that are having babies because of incest. Okay, they blew that up completely out of proportion, and because of that, they lost so many voters. So when you have a team that doesn't plan accordingly, you're gonna fail, and it's completely evident as to why the Democratic Party failed this election. They completely flopped, and it's not a surprise that Trump won the popular vote, the Electoral College. We won the House and we won the Senate. People want change. Inflation is a huge thing in the United States right now. We want to see change. You're talking about illegal immigration, or illegal immigrants crossing the border the wrong way. When you have that, it affects every individual here in the United States, your day-to-day living. And people are like, well, these are just people that are trying to make an honest day's wage. I understand that. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that, if you don't mind. When somebody crosses the border illegally, their whole goal is not to stay in the valley. They don't want to be in the valley. They want to go up north. They're going to have to cross the checkpoint. Besides crossing the border, they got to get through the checkpoint, and then after that, they want to move. They want to either be somewhere on the other side of the checkpoint in Texas, or they want to leave to another state. Their whole goal is to get a job. Because they entered this country illegally, they cannot get a job. They don't have a social security number, and they don't have the proper documentation. And most employers cannot hire you without a social security because they have to report earnings, and you're not going to be able to do that. So what happens is people start to hire these cash employees where I'm going to pay you cash. And it creates chaos in our country because now you have employers that are not reporting taxes properly, which means that taxes are not being taken in, and the country, our state, has to raise taxes because there's not enough funds coming in for taxes, and they have to raise taxes for the people that are paying taxes properly, and the ones that are not paying taxes because they don't have proper documentation are now taking advantage of a system, and they're not even paying a tax. They're not even paying taxes in the country that they're living in. That's one thing. Second is that these people are very willing to work for minimum wage, if not less than minimum wage, because they don't have papers. The countries that these individuals are coming from, either Mexico or South America, they get sometimes $3 to $10 a day. So for them to come here and work for even $5 an hour in a field, or for them to come to do some manual labor, and let's say they do settle for $5 a day, or even the minimum wage, $7.25. What's going to happen when a U.S. citizen like Evelyn wants to come and apply for that same job with you, Rachel, that you're trying to look for 10 employees? You're looking for 10 employees that are willing to work for you. And you have 3 people here that have their papers. They have their social security, and they want to get paid by law what you're supposed to pay them, $7.25 minimum. But you have these guys over here, these 6, 7 workers that are saying, hey, I'll do it for $4 an hour. Who are you going to hire as an employer? That's a question.
Yeah, and probably the $4.
Probably the $4, because you're going to do what's best for your pocket. But that's not good for the American citizen that's looking for a job. So what does that do? The unemployment rate goes up. Thanks to Biden's administration, unemployment has been at a high. You have people that are without jobs. Why? Because you have an influx of people that are willing to work for less, and it's hurting our economy. That's not to say that I'm against people coming over here. This is an American dream for anybody. America was built on immigrants.
It's almost a disservice to the illegal immigrant.
Exactly.
Because they could be coming in the right way, getting the correct documentation, going and getting a good paying job, not just your minimum wage, settling for the minimum, right?
Exactly.
Like getting benefits in the right way. Like,
yeah, it ends up being a disservice. There was a,
not to mention how dangerous it is for them to be crossing illegally.
So I know that a lot of the people that are saying let's allow this to happen, that it's okay, but most of the people that are crossing over are like rapists, murderers, and then they want them to come and just let them roam free. And I think like our country, it's a free country, yes, but it's not free in that kind of way. Like I feel like we take advantage of what we have here, and we kind of just throw that away. And I think that it's important to vote for that reason. I think that like you're voting for who seems like is gonna make the country better. Like I guess in everybody's eyes it's different, but it's important to see like who's already made a difference to who's not gonna make a difference. Because Kamala Harris and Biden have already been in office for 4 years, and it's been going. The plane is it's not landing. It's actually going in air, ready to crash into another plane. Actually, it's an inside joke. But anyways, like, but Trump has already been in office, and I guess we've seen like a better. I wouldn't say better, but he's already made peace treaties, or like he's getting to that point, and he's not even in office yet. Like I think it's so important like to see like who's actually going to be making the change and who's been in office and hasn't made any changes. And I think it's scary like letting to see like what would have happened if Kamala Harris won, I know that it's kind of biased to say that, and I'm not trying to make it biased. I want it to be for everybody, but like I really want to know like what would have happened. You know what I mean? Like I did so thankful that she didn't win. Like that's my opinion, but I don't think that it was going to be a good thing for this country if she did. But I mean, everybody has their own point of views. I just think that we should be seeing we should be open minded about everything. I know some people that like they were saying about like oh like racism to Mexicans for the next 4 years. There's racism never leaves. Racism never goes away. It doesn't matter who's in office.
So on that, I don't know why they're saying racism. I didn't hear anything about that. But if they're trying to say that Trump is a racist, um, Trump has his own business and he hires Hispanics, he hires Cubans, Puerto Ricans, he hires people from South America that work in his company. So I don't know where that's coming for. I will say that just kind of speaking on the candidate, uh, President elect Trump. He's not a politician. That is one of the main primary reasons I voted for him, along with the views that align with my views. But oftentimes, when he did get interviewed or when he was talking, I think he did put his foot in his mouth a lot, and he didn't say things correctly. But again, he's not a politician. He's not up there to bamboozle people. He's not up there to try to sway you and make you feel pretty and all this. Sometimes it comes off very, very rough. It doesn't come out the way he intends for it to come out. But I'd rather have somebody that doesn't know how to talk but knows how to run a business, and they can see America as a business that they want to see succeed, right? So if his company can be successful, and he's already proven to do it with our country 4 years ago before he left office. The price of gasoline was $1.67 when he left office. When at the end of the election for when Donald Trump won the election, price was 276, 276, and it was going up. We're still around that mark right here. I don't foresee that going down much, especially where the holidays are already approaching. So it is a huge deciding factor. And the fact that everything that Kamala Harris was saying was talking about on day one. We're going to do this on day one. Well, the whole argument there is, girl, you're in office right now. You still had 3 months. You still had 4 months when you're talking about on day one, we're going to make all these changes. Well, the fact of the matter is that you're in office now. Why don't you? And they had control of the House. They lost control of the House now, but they had the opportunity. They had the opportunity to make some things that were going to be leading to the platform she was trying to stand on, and it didn't go that way. So it's very difficult for somebody to back an individual like that when you're making future promises on things that people know probably will not come to pass if you haven't made a much of a difference now.
Let's talk about kind of the aftermath of this voting election. It's already been a couple of weeks, and I feel like our society, like Evelyn said, like, oh, I wonder what it would be. I wonder what it would be like if we actually lost. Well, to half of America, a little less than half, there can be issues, and there's been a lot of turmoil, you could say, between people that voted for one party, people that voted for another. What do you think about, or what kind of message would you send to anyone kind of in that situation, in the giving or the receiving of that? Because I've seen both sides. Republicans that are being really rude and ugly, and Democrats being really rude and ugly to one another on both, and it's not right in any case. Like no matter who you voted for, being rude, threatening people, all that's wrong. So what would you say about that?
Well, I know me myself. I voted for Trump, so it was a good thing for me. But I know some of my friends that did vote for Kamala Harris, and I know some of my friends that also voted for Trump. So that day after the election, when was the election, on a Thursday? It was on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We went to school, so, and my friend was there. She wasn't. My friends weren't upset, but me and my friend were like, we were happy about it. And we're like, yeah, Trump 2024, yada yada yada. But I said it in a way that wasn't like, I wasn't trying to be offensive, because at the end of the day, that's my friend. You know what I mean? And I know some people like took it crazy. I know some people were yelling. I've seen so many videos on TikTok, people crying, people screaming and yelling like that's gonna make a difference or something.
Or like even on the other side of it, I've seen really rude Trump voters that were saying things against women, like,
Oh, I saw that little what is it called? No, it's those things it's those no, I'm not done. The no, the crowds, what are they called? The crowds of people when they get mad, the protests, riots and protests or whatever. Riots, when they were, I guess they were called, I guess you could say riots, but they were out there saying your body my choice, yada yada yada. um I think at the end of the day we have to be respectful, because I mean, obviously, it's your choice, but it's a choice to go out and be respectful. But I feel like you got what you wanted, right? Like, why do we have to shove it in people's faces? Like, they saw it. Everyone saw it in this nation. Like, they were watching the debate. They were watching the numbers. Like, they saw and they knew what was gonna happen. And I get like people want to be happy about it and like go out, but like sometimes it's just more appropriate for you to stay to yourself and like you be happy about it by yourself in private with the people that voted it the way you wanted to vote. But going out and shoving it in people's faces like that, I think it's just inappropriate, and I think we should just keep that to ourselves.
Yeah, can you make sure it's recording still, real quick, because she's been playing with this button,
No,
and I don't know if this turns it off.
the button doesn't open.
Okay. Yeah, so I will definitely say that several people unfriended me on Facebook. I was pretty open about voting for Trump. I had 6 flags on the back of my truck that I flew every weekend. I went to the rallies. So I was very adamant. I was very outspoken. I was very boisterous about the things that I was doing and what I wanted to see. Anytime I saw somebody that was posting something about Kamala Harris, it made me want to share something about Donald Trump. And I think because of that, people were upset. I wasn't rude. I wasn't ugly about it, but I wanted to make sure that if there was things that were being circulated about Kamala Harris, I wanted to make sure that within my feeds and my influence of friends, you were going to see an equal amount of Donald Trump posts being circulated out there as well. But as a licensed minister in the United Pentecostal Church, I think it was something that was frowned on. People started calling me a hypocrite. People started accusing me of not loving God, not living for God because of the person that I voted for. I think there's a misconception as to who you vote for. I think there's a lot of Christians out there that voted for Donald Trump, and I applaud them. You had giant figures in the organizations or in the movement, the Christian movement, like Sam Rodriguez, that were promoting not necessarily specific candidate, but the views that aligned with Donald Trump. Right? You had huge pastors that were very outspoken about it, and I think it's at the end of the day, we have to understand now that the election is over. I think it's really important that we come back to realizing and understanding what God has called us to do, right? God has called us to love each other. And at the end of the day, there's a specific party that won, whether it was Kamala Harris or it was Trump. Now, this candidate, Donald Trump, has to realize, how are you going to unite the country now?
So at the end of the podcast, my dad talks about why it's important for us to realize the importance. I would like to elaborate. So I feel like the importance of it is definitely to your right. You know what? I feel like it's your right to vote. I mean, it's also your right not to vote. But I feel like we should definitely express our rights just because this is America. We're lucky to be here. We're lucky that our land is free. And a lot of people might disagree with that, but that is totally okay. Nobody's going to judge you for that. I just wanted to come out here and make this podcast to explain to you guys or give you information or opinions on like why you should go out and vote. And I hope that my podcast was informational for you. I hope that you guys learned something or you heard something that you liked. And if you didn't, that's okay. I hope you just enjoyed watching and hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thank you.